Have you ever noticed that sometimes healing creates a new problem? Not because healing is bad, but because once God starts removing the old layers, you have to decide whether you're actually going to live differently. Many people assume healing ends when God exposes the wound, brings breakthrough, or shows us what needs to change. But often the hardest part comes afterwards. The hardest part is agreeing with what God is showing you. For years, God had been healing things inside of me. He was softening places that had been hardened by survival, exposing unhealthy patterns, and challenging old beliefs. From the outside, it looked like growth, but internally, there was such a struggle. Healing had introduced me to a version of myself that I didn't fully know I had to live as yet. That's where acceptance comes in. Not accepting your wounds or your limitations, but accepting who God says you are. That sounds simple until it begins touching the places where you've built your identity. For me, one of the places was motherhood. And if I'm honest, there were seasons when I quietly believed I just wasn't naturally motherly. I would say it casually. I'm just not the motherly type. I treated it like a personality trait, as though it was simply who I was. Looking back now, I realized it wasn't confidence. It was resignation. It was easier to label myself than confront what was underneath. I knew how to provide, protect, lead, and endure. But presence, it felt harder. Connection felt harder. Tenderness, even harder. Instead of asking why, I built an identity around those struggles and convinced myself I'm just not built that way. Maybe you've done the same thing too. Maybe not with motherhood, but with relationships, trust, vulnerability, joy, or rest. Sometimes we take the areas that we've struggled the most with and turn them into our permanent labels. We say, this is just who I am. But what if it isn't? What if it's simply who survival taught you to be? The moment that forced me to confront this happened during a conversation with my son. It wasn't easy to hear. He looked me straight in the eye and said, Mom, I will never marry someone like you. Then he began describing me as cold, distant, and mission first. In that moment, everything inside of me wanted to defend myself. I wanted to explain the sacrifices, the military, the pressure, the responsibilities, and all the things that I carried. I wanted him to understand my intentions, but God wouldn't let me stay there. The truth was that my son wasn't talking about my intentions. He was talking about his experience with me. And those are not always the same thing. That moment hurt, not because he was trying to hurt me, but because he was being honest. Honesty has a way of exposing agreements we've been living under for so many years. And I sat with his words. I realized that the version of me he described was the same version I had quietly accepted. The version that believed I'm not really motherly. I'm just wired differently. And this is just the way I am. Suddenly, I saw what God had been showing me all along. Motherhood wasn't missing. It was buried. Connection wasn't absent. It was guarded. And tenderness, it wasn't gone. It was protected behind years of armor. That's the difference. God wasn't asking me to become someone else. He was asking me to stop agreeing with whose survival had convinced me who I was. Isaiah 43 says, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. Think about that. God calls us by name, not by our wounds, failures, coping mechanisms, or defenses. He calls us by name. Yet many of us spend years asking God to heal us while still arguing with the identity he is trying to give us. We want freedom, but we continue agreeing with the old labels. We introduce ourselves through our wounds, fears, limitations, and past experiences. Eventually, healing asks a different question. Will you agree with me? Will you stop living from the identity survival built? Will you stop defending the version of yourself I am asking you to outgrow? That was the crossroads for me. And honestly, acceptance wasn't a feeling. It was a decision to practice presence, listen differently, love differently, and show up differently. Not perfectly, differently. Because agreement with truth always produces action. Over time, those actions became habits. Those habits became alignment. And that alignment slowly became the life God was calling me into. That is why I believe wholeness begins when we stop striving to become someone else and start agreeing with who God says we already are. Healing might uncover the truth, but acceptance is what allows us to live from it. And maybe that's the question for all of us today. What truth has God already shown you about yourself that you're still struggling to believe? Because freedom often begins the moment we stop arguing with what God has already spoken. Before we go, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for trusting us enough to step in this process with you. From all of us at Trauma Uncovered, we're very grateful you joined us. And we're honored to be able to walk this journey with you. If this space has already felt meaningful to you, we'd love for you to stay connected. You can subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming segments, and you can follow us on all of our social media pages. All of the links are in the description and comments below. We'll be sharing encouragement scripture, the reflection questions from this week, and details about our live conversations there. We hope to see you soon.